Welcome to this predicted paper from onmaths that is based on the advanced information given to us by the exam boards. Please use this paper in addition to your other revision. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our onmaths site. Onmaths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing. If we put this in a place value grid, and so we've got thousands, hundreds, tens, and units. We've got 9, 0, 8, 8. So it's 9,000, because it's 9 lots of thousands, and 8 tens, so it would be 80. And we've got 8 units, so 8. The range is just the biggest number, take away the smallest number. Biggest number in this list is 15. The smallest number in this list is 3. So 15 take away 3 is 13. So the range is 13. To answer this question, we're going to have to remember what BIDMAS or BODMAS is. And it stands for brackets, indices, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. Okay, if you do BIDMAS, obviously BODMAS is slightly different. And here we've got no brackets, we've got no indices, so those don't really apply. We don't have a division, but we do have a multiplication, so we must do that first. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do 8 times 6. 8 times 6 is 48. And we've not got any multiplications anymore, and then we've got an addition. So 11 plus 48 is 59, and that's our answer. Now you wouldn't get the same answer if you did the 11 plus 8 first. That would give you 19, and then 19 times 6 is definitely not 59. For us to create the smallest number, we need to pick the smallest digits at the start of the number. So the smallest digit is 3, then the next smallest digit is 4, next smallest digit is 5, then the next smallest digit is 8. But it wants it to be an odd number, and this is an even number. So we have to move that 8 forward 1 and have that 5 at the end. So the smallest odd number is 3,485. If there were 39 people on the bus and 4 people got off the bus, that would leave 35 people remaining on the bus. So the fraction of people staying on the bus is 35 out of the 39 people on the bus. So our answer is, as a fraction, 35 over 39. And we can't cancel that any further. So with this question, we need to first of all count how many sides this polygon has. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's 10 sides. And we just need to know that a 10-sided shape is a decagon. Now we are expected to know all of the names of shapes between 3 and 10 sides. So if you don't know them already, just sit down and learn them. For this question, it's really important that we understand what the words sum and product mean. Now, sum just means add, and product just means times. So we're going to start by adding the 5 and the 4. So that will equal 9. And then what we're going to do is find the product of 9 and 7. So we're going to multiply them together. 9 times 7, which is 63. So our answer is 63. There are 10 squares in total, so each square is worth 1/10. And if we count all of the shaded squares, we notice that in total there are 7 shaded squares. So that's 7 lots of 1/10, or 7/10. So we've just got to know some vocab. Faces are where you could lay your hand flat on a shape. Then you've got edges where you can run your finger along. And then vertices are the corners, the bits that you would stab into your finger. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the front, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, including the back ones. So a prime number is a number that is only in the 1 times table and its own times table. So 4, for example, is not a prime number because it is also in the 2 times table. 6 is in the 2 times table. 15 is in the 3 times table. 21 is also in the 3 times table. 9 is also in the 3 times table. Now 1 is a bit of a special case. The definition is that it has to be in 1 and its own times table, and technically 1 is only in one of those. So 1 is not a prime number. The smallest prime number is actually 2, but 2 is not in this list. 23 though is not in any other times table, so 23 is a prime number. Whenever we multiply two negatives, we always get a positive, so we know our answer will be positive. We're going to do 9 times 12, which is going to be 108, and v times v, which is going to be v squared. So I'm going to start just by copying this question. When we're told to solve, it means we need to find out what x is, and there's a nice little strategy to be able to do that. And the first thing we do is just draw lines left and right of the equal sign. And we look at the left-hand side and work out what is stopping x from being on its own. Well, this minus 10 here is stopping x from being on its own. So we need to get rid of that somehow. And we do that by doing the opposite of it. So what is the opposite of take away 10? Well, that's going to be plus 10. But you can't just do that to the left-hand side. You have to do the same thing to the right-hand side. So on the left-hand side now, we're left with just x because we've got rid of that take away 10. And on the right-hand side, we do 6 plus 10, which is 16. So our solution is x equals 16. When collecting terms, you've got to make sure you're collecting like terms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write this question out, but I'm going to use a different colour for all the things that are like terms. So we've got the 14x, we've got the 8x squared, we've got the 8x, and we've got the minus 5x squared. So the like terms are the x terms, so 14x plus, I should say 8x, plus 8x, and the x squared terms are like terms, so we've got 8x squared, take away 5x squared. So we can do 14x plus 8x, so 14 lots of x plus 8 lots of x is going to be 22 lots of x. And we can do 8x squared minus 5x squared, 8 lots of x squared, take away 5 lots of x squared is going to be 3 lots of x squared. Now typically in our answer we'll always put the x squareds first, so it becomes 3x squared plus 22x. I'm going to start just by copying out the question. So we've got x over 12 equals 4, and when we're asked to solve, it means we need to find out what x is. We need x equals, and the method for doing it is just by putting lines either side of the equal sign, our solving lines. And what we need to do is we need to get x on its own on the left hand side. What's stopping x from being on its own? This over 12. What does over 12 mean? Well, it means divide by 12. So how do we get rid of it? Well, we do the opposite, the inverse of divided by 12. What is the opposite of divide by 12? Times 12. Now these lines show us that whatever we do on the left hand side we have to do on the right hand side. So we have to times 12 both sides. So on the left hand side we're left with x. On the right hand side we do 4 times 12, which is 48. So our solution is x equals 48. So we're going to use a function machine to find out the output when we've got an input of 11. So we put 11 into this machine, and the first thing that happens is we multiply it by 3. So out of that first machine we're going to have 33, which is 11 times 3. Then the next part of the machine is going to take away 5 from that. So 33 take away 5 is going to be 28. So our output is going to be 28. In algebra, we don't show the times sign, so 17 times A times B just simply becomes 17AB. Median just means middle, but it's the middle of the ordered list. So the first thing we need to do is put these numbers in order. So we're going to have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9. And to find the middle, what we do is we cross off the smallest and the largest, and we put our pen away. Then we do the same thing again, smallest, largest, pen away. Now, you see here that I can't cross out the smallest and largest because that will leave no numbers at all. So when you're left with 2 in the middle, all you need to do is add them together and divide by 2. So 5 plus 6 is 11. And 11 divided by 2 is 5.5. And if you look, 5.5 is exactly halfway between 5 and 6. I'm going to start just by writing down the number. And we're asked to round this to 3 significant figures. And basically what that means is starting from the left-hand side, it's 3 numbers that we want. So 1, 2, 3. And we're going to do our line after that third number. And you start counting the first non-zero digit. So the first digit there was 2, so we started counting. Now all the numbers to the left, or sorry, to the right, so these numbers here, will all turn to 0. But before that happens, we look at this number. Now this number, if it's 5 or more, it moves this number up by 1. If it's less than 5, that number stays the same. Now it is 5 or more, because it is 5. So it's not going to be 207, it's going to be 208. Now, a common mistake is that students write down 208. No, all the numbers to the right of that line turn to 0. So it would be 0, 0, 0. So it would be 20,000 or 208,000 exactly. In this question, we're given the output as 53. So we know that the output was 53. So now we've kind of got to work backwards. And when we work backwards through a function machine or a number machine, we do the opposite of what it says. So this first one says plus 9, but when we go backwards, we do the opposite, which is take away 9. So we do 53 take away 9, which is 44. Now we can check that by going the other way. So 44 plus 9 is 53, so that works. The next one says times 4, so the opposite would be divided by 4. So we're going to do 44 divided by 4, and that gives us an input of 11. Now let's check the whole thing. We put in 11. 11 times 4 is 44. 44 plus 9 is 53, so we know we've got it correct. Whenever we're putting fractions, decimals and percentages in order, the best way of doing it is converting them all into decimals. So here we've got 0.8, which is already a decimal, so that's just going to be 0.8. Here we've got 9/10, so 9/10 is 0 in the units column and a 9 in the tenths column. 7 over 25, well, something we can do with that is just times top and bottom by 4, so we get 28 over 100. So it's going to be 0 in the units column, 2 in the tenths column, and 8 in the hundredths column. Next thing we're going to do is draw a little place value table. And so we've got units here, tenths and hundredths. So we've got 0.9, 0.28 and 0.8. And you can see here that looking at the tenths column, that 2 means that this 0.28 is the smallest. So 0.28 is 7 over 25, so that's our smallest. And it says it wants it in ascending order, which just basically means from smallest to biggest. Okay, looking at that, so we've dealt with that. The next smallest is that 8, so 0.8. So 0.8 will be our next smallest. And then the largest is that 0.9. Now 0.9 is 9 over 10. Now always make sure that if it's given in a fraction that you don't write the decimal in the answer. You want to make sure you write what the question had with it. To work out the area of this shape, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work out the area of the big rectangle that is, it's almost a big rectangle, and I'm going to take away the area of this small little bit at the bottom. And I'm going to label this big rectangle A and this little rectangle here B. So to work out the area of A, we're going to do 9.8, which is the width, times the length, which is 5.6. And that will give us 54.88. Now to work out B, we actually have a bit missing. We need to work out what the length of this bit here is. So in fact, let's just choose a different color just so it shows up a bit more, this length here. So we're going to work out the length of this, and we'll call this C just to make things easier. So to work out the length of C, we're going to do the total length across of this whole shape, which is 9.8, and take away the bits that we know, which is the 4.3 and the 1.2. So we're going to do 4.3 plus 1.2, take that away from 9.8, and when I do that I get the answer of 4.3, and that's a coincidence that it's the same as the left hand one. So we know that that's 4.3, so we actually now we can work out the area of rectangle B, and all we're going to do for that is the 4.3 we've just found times the 2.4, because it's obviously a length of 2.4. When I do that I get 10.32. Now to work out the area of the whole shape, so the area of the rectangle, all we need to do is the area of A take away the area of B. So the area of A was 54.88. We're going to take away the 10.32, and that gives us a 44.56. And all the units are in centimetres, so our units for the area will be centimetres squared. So what we did was we found out the total area, which is the whole area of this shape here, and we took away the bit we didn't want, which is the area of this rectangle here. When I do that, I get the area of the bit I do want, which is all of this rectangle but without that B at the bottom. And this is a really important way of working this out, that you work out the whole thing and take away the bits that you don't want. We've got to first of all work out how many parts there are altogether in our ratio. So we've got 51 saying yes, 7 saying no, and 13 undecided. So altogether we've got 51 plus 7 plus 13, which is 71 parts. Now each part is equal. So to find out the value of one part, we're going to do how many students there are, which is 2,911, and divide it by the 71 to find out what one part is worth, how many students are in one part. One part's worth 41 students. So each one of those parts in the ratio is 41 students. Now yes, because it goes yes, no, undecided, yes will be the 51 there. So it's 51 lots of 41 students. 51 parts with each part representing 41 students. And when you multiply those together you get 2,091. So our answer is that 2,091 students responded with yes. So we can quickly draw a line of best fit for here. And it looks something like that. And if our line of best fit is increasing like we have here, then we say the data is positive. If, however, the line of best fit is decreasing and looks like this, we say that it's negative correlation. So positive if it's going up, which this one is, so it's a positive correlation. And if it's going down, then it's a negative correlation. If the data is all over the place, so it looks like something like this, where you've got the points everywhere, we say that's no correlation. The first piece of information I'm going to focus on is the fact Denver gets 8/19. Denver gets 8/19, that means that Engel and Fido together must get 11/19 because they have to add up to 1. So we're only looking at 11/19. I'm going to focus on the ratio next of angle to Fido. So it's 9 to 5. And let's have a look and see, well, first of all, how many parts there are altogether. So 9 plus 5, which is 14 parts. So there are 14 parts in total, and the share that they get is 11/19. So what I'm going to do is find out what fraction one of those parts is worth by dividing 11/19 by 14. So each part is worth, and I'm just going to keep this into my calculator, 0.041 blah blah blah. And we're asked to find Fido's share. Well, Fido has 5 parts. So Fido has 5 parts, each of them worth 0.041 blah blah blah. I've kept it in my calculator to keep the accuracy, and when I do that I get 0.206 blah blah blah. Now we're asked to work it out as a percent, so I'm just going to times that by 100. So we have 20.676 blah 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 percent, and it wants it rounded to the nearest percent, so that would be 20%. Or actually it would be 21%, because this would round it up, so 21%. I'm going to start by just copying out the question. Now the word solve means find out what x is, and the first thing we do when we see solve is draw lines to the left and right of our equal sign so we can solve it. So there's 2 things stopping us from having x on its own: this over 5 and this take away 10. Now that take away 10 isn't in the fraction, and normally I would say to get rid of the fractions first, but because that take away 10 is just sitting there on its own, we need to get rid of that first. So what I'm going to do is the opposite of take away 10 to both sides. So we're going to add 10 to both sides. That will leave the x over 5 on the left hand side, and 0 plus 10 is 10. So we want to get rid of this over 5, but what does over 5 mean? Well, it means divided by 5. So the opposite, the inverse of divided by 5 is times 5. So I'm going to do that to both sides. So we're left with x on the left hand side. 10 times 5 is 50. So x equals 50. First thing we need to do is work out the area of the wall. And so to do that, we're just going to multiply the 44 by the 40. So 44 times 40 is 1,760. And next thing we notice is that each tin covers 10 meters squared. So it actually means we can work out the fact that there are 1,760 meters squared in total for our wall. And if each tin covers 10 meters squared, then we will need 176 tins. That's the amount of tins we need. And each tin costs £5.70, so it'd be 176 times the 5.7, or yeah, £5.70, or you could do it as 570 pence and convert it at the end. And that gives us a price of 1003.2. And so as money, that would be £1,003.20. So what we can do here is we can do 3 divided by 7 to find out what 3 is a percentage of 7, find out what that is as a decimal, which would be 0.428 blah blah blah. And then to convert a decimal into a percentage, we times by 100, so we can get that 0.428 blah blah blah, and we're going to times it by 100, and that will be 42.857. And it wants it to the nearest percent, so that's going to round to 43%. Mode just means the most common or most frequent, and modal is exactly the same. It's just the most frequent amount of coins we're looking for. So the students who had 3 coins in their pockets came up 15 times. Students had 4 coins in their pocket, well there were 16 of them. there were 15 students who had 5 coins, 17 students who had 6 coins, and 12 students who had 7 coins. So the most frequent amount of coins a student has in their pocket will be 6, because it happens 17 times, which is more than any other amount of coins. So we have an original amount, and this represents 100% of the original amount. The new price, new amount, represents 113%, because it has said that it has gone up by 13%. So it has increased by 13%. And as a value, that increase is £1,287. So it's 13% of the original. It's gone up 13% of the original price. So what we're going to do is we're going to work out what 1% of the price increase is. Instead of 13%, we're going to work out what 1% is. And we're going to do that by dividing the amount by 13, and we get 99. So 1% represents £99. So 1% of the original represents £99. But the new amount is 113%. So we need to times the £99 by 113, which gives us £11,187. So the picture is now worth £11,187. So we can see that the first 4 of these have already been plotted. Now it's really important that you you do the coordinate the right way around. So the first one is number and then algebra. So we're looking at this coordinate here. We're 18 on number, which would be here, and then 14 on algebra, which would be this point here. 12 on both, so 12 and 12 would be here, and then 21 and 17. So 21 and 17 would be roughly there. So for this question, we just need to pick one of the coordinates. I'm just going to pick this one here. And we just need to work out what the coordinates are. Well, it's going up in 2, so it's going to be 4 on this side. And this is kind of 4.5, so that's going to be 19 there. So we know it's 19 at the bottom and 4 at the side here. So we're going to have a look on our table for a 4 and a 19. We've got a 19 and 23 here. It's got to be a 4 and a 19, which is here. And it shows that the 4 is for paper 1 and the 19 is for paper 2. So our answer will just be paper 2. To answer this question, we need to cut this shape into 2 shapes. So we're going to draw a line across here, and we're going to cut it into a rectangle and a triangle. Now we need to first of all label the parts of the triangle. So the length or the width of the triangle, the base, will be the same as the base at the bottom, so that will be 20 centimeters. And we need to find the height, which is this length here, which is 90 degrees to the base. And to find that, what we can look at is the fact that the total height of the whole thing is 13, and the height of the bit we don't want is 11. So what's left over? Well, 2 centimeters will be left over, so the height will be 2 centimeters of the triangle. So let's work out the area of the triangle first. Which is going to be half times base times height. Half times the base, which is 20, times the height, which is 2, will just give us 20. Now let's work out the area of the rectangle. And that's just going to be the width times the length. Width is 20, the length is 11, so that would be 220. Then to work out the total area of the whole thing, we're just going to add those together. So 220 plus 20, which is 240. The units are all in centimetres, and so the area units will be centimetres squared. So there's a formula for percentage increase or percentage change. And it is the change over the original amount times 100%. So to find out the change here, we're going to do the difference between 1,421 and 1,100. So we're going to do 1,421 take away 1,100, which is 321. Divide that by the original amount. So the original amount was the 1,100, and then times by 100%. And that's going to be 29.18%. So we're going to write out the question again, just to give us a bit more space. And we're going to put in our tramline so we can solve it. Now we're going to solve this in exactly the same way as if it was an equation with an equals in the middle. One slight difference though is if you times or divide by a negative, you've got to flip the sign, but hopefully we won't do that. Now the rule when you've got an x's on both sides is you get rid of the smaller amount. So we're going to get rid of that 4x from both sides. We're going to take away 4x both sides. And so we're going to have 3x plus 8 is greater than 23. And then we're just going to solve this normally. So take away 8 both sides. And that will give us 3x is greater than 15. And then we're going to divide the 3 both sides. And that will be x is greater than 5. So we're going to start off with x equals 0. And we're going to write out this equation, but with 0 every time it says x. So it's going to be y equals 0 squared minus 0 plus 10. Well, 0 squared is just 0, so 0 take away 0 is just 0, plus 10 is just going to be 10. So the answer there will be 10. Do the same for 1. So it will be 1 squared minus 1 plus 10. Well, 1 squared is 1, 1 take away 1 is 0, plus 10 is 10. So that will also be 10. 2 squared minus 2 plus 10. 2 squared is 4, 4 take away 2 is 2, plus 10 will be 12. Now we're going to do the negative, so we're going to look at minus 1. So it's y equals minus 1 squared, and it's going to be minus 1 plus 10. So a little bit more complicated here. Minus 1 squared is just 1. Now here you have two negatives together. When you have two negatives together, it makes a plus. So we've got 1 plus 1 plus 10, which is going to be 12. And then we'll do the minus 2, so it'd be minus 2 squared minus 2 plus 10. So minus 2 squared is 4. The two minuses here make a plus, so it'd be plus 2, which would be 6, plus 10 will be 16. So we're going to plot these on our graph. And so we've got minus 2 is at 16, so that'll be there. Minus 1 is at 12, should be here. 0 is at 10, 1 is at 10, and 2 is at 12. Okay, when you join this up, things to be aware of is you need to make sure that you have a round U at the bottom and not a flat bottom. Okay, so you want to avoid a flat bottom. You also want to make sure that you avoid feathering like that. You want just one nice smooth line. And my recommendation is always to turn the page on its side. I don't have that luxury, so I'm going to try my best with this. But you need to make sure it goes through all the points. And here's the part here where it goes beneath those 2 points. So make sure it goes beneath those 2 points. On most exams, I see them, basically what they do is they draw a line across from those 2 points and say that the line needs to go beneath that, or your curve needs to go beneath that line. So they're looking out so that you've gone beneath the line. To find the smallest possible width, I'm just going to do a quick number line. And all I'm going to do is put 12.5 12.2 on our number line and figure out what the next number down will be. Well, if it's the nearest tens, the next number down would be 12.1. That's the next number down it could have rounded to. And I'm just going to cut this number line in half and find out where our halfway point is. Well, the halfway point would be 12.15, and that's actually the minimum it could have been before it would have rounded to 12.1. So this question says that Adrian, Ben and Charlie have some sweets, and the ratio of Adrian to Ben to Charlie is 9 to 6 to 13. But it also says that Charlie got 56 more sweets than Adrian. So there's 56 more sweets. Well, looking at the actual parts of the ratio, there are 4 more parts. So plus 4 parts, which represent plus 56 sweets. So the 4 extra parts are worth 56 sweets. So 4 parts are worth 56 sweets. So 1 part would be 56 divided by 4, which is 14 sweets. So all we need to do now is work out how many parts there are. Well, there are 9 plus 6 plus 13 parts, which is 28. And each part is worth 14 sweets. So the total number of sweets will be 28 times 14. So 28 times 14 is 392. So factorise means to put it into a bracket, and it looks like it's a quadratic here, but it's actually just a linear factorising because we don't have a number term. So we're going to just use one bracket for this. And looking at these terms, I'm going to focus first on the numbers. So 20 and 30, I can divide both of those by 10, and that will leave 2 and 3. So that's the numbers done. Next, I'm looking at the t terms. So we've got t squared there and a t there. So we can divide out a t, but that will leave a t on the first term. And finally, I'm going to look at the u, and there's just a u on both of them. I can factorise out, and actually that just leaves nothing on the inside of the bracket. Now, always when you do this, expand the bracket to check if you've made any mistakes. So I'm going to do smiles and rainbows. There's loads of different methods. So 10 times 2 is 20, t times t is t squared, and then the u, plus 10 times 3 is 30, times t times u. So we know we've got the right answer. So our answer is 10tu brackets 2t plus 3. Okay, so we're going to start by writing this out a little bit bigger, give us a bit more space. So it's minus 6x is less than 60. And we're going to do our tram lines down. And we're going to start by dividing both sides by minus 6. Because that's what this is doing. It's timesing the x by minus 6. So I'm going to divide both sides by minus 6. So that gets rid of the minus 6 on the left-hand side. And it's going to be 60 divided by minus 6, which will be minus 10. Now we've got to be really careful here, because whenever you times or divide both sides by a negative, you must switch the inequality. So instead of pointing to the left, it's now going to point to the right. So our answer is x is greater than minus 10. To find out what the value of x is, we first of all have to find out what the value of y is. And we can notice that we've got two sets of parallel lines here, and a line going through them. And we kind of got these f angles, which we have to call corresponding angles. So we know that 2y minus 50 is equal to 78, and we must write down the reason. So corresponding angles, and corresponding angles are equal. Now here we've got an equation and we want to solve it, so we get our lines in. We'll go first of all add 50 to both sides. So we've got 2y equals 78 plus 50, which would be 128. And then we're going to halve both sides, or divide by 2. So we've got 64. So we know that y is 64. And so we look back at the diagram to find out how we'd work out x. Well, what we can do, there's a few different things we can do. We could work out the fact that these two here are vertically opposite. That would be absolutely fine. But actually, if we look at this part here and this part here, these are also two parallel lines, and we've got this angle here and this angle are going to be alternate. So I can write that down here. So angle ECB is equal to 78 degrees. So this will be 78 degrees. And the reason for that is alternate angles. And then finally, if we know this is 78 and we know that this is 64, because we know what y is, then we can work out what x is. So x equals 180, angles in a triangle, take away the 78 we know and the 64 we know. And the reason for that is angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. And just make sure you write down all the reasons as you go. And when we take away the 78 and the 64 from 180, you get 38. So x is therefore 38 degrees. To find the mean, we need to work out the sum of the numbers, basically what they add up to. And what we then do is divide that by the amount of numbers. Now, what this table is telling us is there are 14 students who got a time between 0 and 4 seconds. Now, it's absolutely impossible to work out what time those students got with the information in this table. So what we need to do is we need to assume they all got, say, 0 seconds or all got 4 seconds. And the fairest value to say that they all got is what we call the midpoint. And to find the midpoint, what you do is you add up the lower bound and the upper bound, so the highest value and the lowest value, add them together and divide by 2. So 0 plus 4 divided by 2, which is just 2. And that gives us a halfway number, which is fair to everyone. So the students roughly probably got 1s, 2s and 3s, and maybe a few 4s maybe. And the average of that is going to be 2, so that's fair for everyone. Same with the 4 and the 8. Halfway between 4 and 8 is 6, and you can add them together, 12 divided by 2, which is 6. Go down finding the midpoints, and we're just going to assume the students all scored the same amount, all got the same time. Then we're going to do our FS column, okay? And so we're assuming that 14 students got a time of 2 seconds, so when you times those together, you get 28. And we're just going to times all of these together. Okay, next we're going to work out the sum of the FS. And to work that out, we just add all of these up together. So we're going to do 28 plus 36 plus 30 plus 126 plus 36. And when you add them all up, you get 256. Now, that will give us the sum of numbers, so we're going to put that into our working out now. And we need to find out how many numbers there are. Well, the frequency column will tell us how many numbers there are, so we're just going to add all of those up together. So we're going to find the sum of the frequency, which is 14 plus 6 plus 3 plus 9 plus 2, which is 34. And when we do 256 divided by 34, we get 7.529 blah blah blah. It says it wants it to 2 decimal places, so we're going to round it to 7.53. So first thing to realise is that the formula for a volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h. So what we need to do first of all is work out the volume of the water butt that James currently has. So we're going to do the volume equals pi times the radius, which is 89 squared, times the height, which is 189. And when we do that, we get 1497,069 lots of pi. And I'll keep this in terms of pi just for simplicity. Now, what we want is we want the volume to stay the same. So we're going to keep that as the volume, 1497,069 pi. But we want the radius to change. So instead of the radius being 89, we want the radius to be 103. So times 103 squared. And we're trying to work out what the height is. Okay, so first thing we can do actually is just cross off the pi's from both sides. We don't really need them at all. And then we can get our solving things in, our solving lines, and we can divide both sides by the 103 squared. And on the left hand side we get 141.113 blah blah blah, and on the right hand side we get h. So the height will be 141.113. It says it wants it to 2 decimal places, so that will be 141.11. So we're going to write an expression for the amount of people on the first bus. So they've started with X passengers and they've gone to 11 bus stops with X passengers. So altogether that is 12X. So we're going to have the first bus. And so we've got 12X. And then on the last bus stop, 19 passengers get on. So plus 19. Now for the second bus, well, we start with X and a further 5X come on. Because 5 bus stops with X passengers. So that's 6X altogether. And then 79 get on. And it says the first bus finishes with less passengers than the first. So the first bus finishes with less. And the way we show that is with this inequality here. Now all we need to do is solve that inequality. And we've got x on both sides, so we look at the x's. We've got 12x and 6x, so we always take away the smaller amount. So we're going to take away the 6x both sides. And next thing we're going to do is take away the 19 from both sides. And so, meant to be 60. Got ahead of myself. And the last thing we do is divide by 6 both sides. And so we've got x is less than 10. Now, it says here, assuming no passengers got off either bus, what is the largest value for x? Now, it is tempting to write down 10, but it says x has to be less than 10. So the biggest number we can get that is less than 10 is 9. There's a lot going on with this question, so I'm going to start off just having a look at the total amount of money. So I'm going to do this in pence, so 2,115 pence. And if each merit point is worth 3 pence, then we can work out the amount of merit points by doing 2,115 divided by 3. So that gives us 705. So there's 705 merit points. Next, have a look at the question here, this part here, where it says James has X merit points. Sarah has 4 times as many points as James, so she's going to have 4X. Robert has 69 fewer merit points than James, so he's going to have X minus 69. And we know that that equals 705 because we've just worked that out. And this feels like a solving coming on. So we've got x plus 4x plus x, which is 6x, minus 69 equals 705. And we're going to add 69 to both sides. So we've got 6x equals 774. Then we're going to divide 6 both sides. And so we've got x equals 129. So x equals 129. That means James has 129. Sarah has 4 times more. So she will have 516. And Robert has 69 fewer. So we're going to take 69 away from that. And that will equal 60. If I start by drawing a number line, and we're going to put the 110 in the middle. Now I'm going to label the next one down and the next one up. It says to the nearest 10. So the next one down would be 100, and the next one up would be 120. Now we're interested in the cutoff, and the cutoff point is between the two numbers. Okay, so that's the cutoff point. If it goes above that cutoff point, it would have rounded to the next number up. So if the number was here, it would round to 120. If the number is on the cutoff point, which we can see is going to be 115, then we know it would round up. So we need to find the biggest number in this part here. So this part here, and it includes this line actually, so it includes this line. So all the numbers that would have rounded to 110 would have been 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, which would be here. But if it was 115, it would have rounded to 120. So 114 is the biggest number it could have been before rounding to 120. And we know it didn't round to 120 because in the question it says it's 110 to the nearest 10. So our answer is 114. So we're told that from 14 people who liked football, so we've got 14 people here who said yes, they do like football. So we can fill up the 14 here. Now, we're told we started with 31. Therefore, if 14 liked football, then 17 must have not liked it. Carrying on the sentence, it says 4 like rugby. So 4 of those liked rugby. And we had 14 to start off with down this strand. And so that must mean that we've got 10 who don't like rugby. So of those 14, 4 liked rugby. So therefore 10 must have not liked rugby. But what about the bottom section? This part here, we've got 17 who didn't like football. Well, it says from the people who did not like football, 6 liked rugby. So we've got 6 there, and that must mean that we've got 11 who did not like rugby. So for this question, what we need to do is factorise 4t plus 6. Now factorise means put it into brackets. So if I try, what I can do is I can actually put a 1 on the outside here. So 1 times 4t plus 6 is 4t plus 6, but the question clearly states that it is higher than 1. So we need to find another number that's higher than 1 to factorise this with. So if we look at 4t and 6, well, they're both in the 2 times table. So I can put a 2 on the outside here. 2 times 2t is 4t, and 2 times 3 is 6. So what we can do is we can just check that out with smiles and rainbows. Put all my times down there to remind me to times it. So 2 times 2t is 4t, 2 times 3 is 6. So that works because that is the same as this in the question. So we know that 2 times 2t plus 3 works. In fact, it's the only one that works with it being an integer. So we therefore know that the known side, because it says it's a known number, is 2. And the other side will be 2t plus 3. And then when you multiply them together, you get the area of 4t plus 6. So our answer, because it says the length is the known number, so that's the length, then we're finding the width, which is this one here. So it's 2t plus 3. So the first thing we're going to do is work out the area of the trapezium. And the formula for that is half brackets a plus b times h. Now a and b have to be the parallel sides. So here we've got the two parallel sides here, which just pick a different colour, here and here. So that is a and b. And then the h is the perpendicular distance between them. So perpendicular means it hits it at right angles, so that's what we've got here. So the area would be half times a, which is 28, plus b, which is 14, times the height, which is 14. And so that would be 294. Next we'll do the circle. Now it doesn't look like we've got anything for the circle, but actually the height here is actually the height of the circle as well. So the height of the circle is the same as the diameter. So the diameter of the circle is 14, therefore the radius would be half of that, which is 7, and the area of a circle is pi times the radius squared. So it would be pi times 7 squared, which will be 153.938 blah blah blah. Now keep that in my calculator, because next thing we'll do is the shaded area part, and it says we want to work out the area of the shaded region. So the area will be the total area, which will be the trapezium, take away the area that we don't want, which is this bit here, which will be the circle. So the trapezium's 294, the circle's 153.93 blah blah blah, and when you do that you get 140.061 blah blah blah. It says it wants it to 2 decimal places, so it would be 140.06. To find the largest weight this package could have been before it was rounded, let's do a quick number line. And we're going to just do it between the 24 and what it would round to next. Well, it's 10 nearest kilogram, so the next thing it would round to is 25. The cutoff point for rounding is here. And that's going to be halfway between 24 and 25, which is 24.5. And that is actually going to be our answer. Now, some of you who are astute might realise that 24.5 would round to 25, but theoretically the biggest it can be is going to be 24.49 recurring. Let's just draw that a bit better, 24.49 recurring. And that is actually the same as 24.5. In your exam, however, you can write 24.49 recurring and you would get full marks, but for brevity, I would definitely recommend writing 24.5. The volume for a pyramid is 1/3 times the length times the width times the height for a square or rectangle based pyramid. And so we've got 1/3 times the 20 times the 20 times the 11. And that gives us 1466.666 recurring. And so to 2 decimal places, that is 1466.67 centimeters cubed. So what's happened here is that the company's increased the amount of sweets by 15%. So we're just going to focus on that and work out what the multiplier would be first. So they started off with 100% and they added 15%. And then therefore they ended up with 115%. And to find that as a multiplier, we get the 115 and divide it by 100, and that gives us 1.15. So that is the multiplier they used. Now they used that multiplier on the original amount, and they times it by 1.15, and they got the answer of 69. But if we're working the other way to find out what they times by 1.15, we get that 69 and we divide it by the multiplier. So if we want to work out what the original number was, we divide it by the multiplier, and that gives us 60. So the answer will be 60. So we've got to first of all understand what standard form is, and standard form is a number that is between 1 and 10, but not including 10, times 10 to the power of another number. So to find out what the numbers are going to be for our standard form, we're going to just write down the decimal first, so 0.098. And we've got to put a decimal point in somewhere to make this a number between 1 and 10. So if I put it in here, that would make it 9.8, and we're ignoring the zeros to the left-hand side. So we know that our standard form is going to start off with 9.8 times 10 to the power of something. Now this times 10 is always going to be there. It's never divided by 10 or anything like that. It's always times 10. Next, we've got to find out what the power is going to be. So first of all, if it's a small number, if it's a number less than 1, which this is, it's a small number, it's going to be a negative power. And the next thing we do is work out how many jumps we had to do. So it would be 1, 2 jumps between where the decimal point was and where it is now. So 2 jumps means it's going to be to the power of minus 2. So we're asked to find 3a minus 2b. So let's work out 3a first. 3a is going to be the top times 3 and the bottom times 3. So the top times 3 is 9, bottom times 3 is 6. Then we're going to work out what 2b is. Again, times the top by 2, times the bottom by 2. And so 3a take away 2b is going to be 3a, which is 9 at the top, take away, and then the 2b, which is minus 2. And then the bottom will be 6, take away, minus 4. And so that's going to be 9 plus 2, which is 11. 6 plus 4, which is 10. So the vector is going to be 11 at the top, 10 at the bottom. First thing we need to do is work out the volume of this prism. And it's a trapezium-based prism. So the volume will be the area of the cross-section, or area of the trapezium, times the length, how 3D the prism is. So trapezium is half a plus b h, and then times the length. Now a and b are the two parallel sides, which will be this one and this one. And then the h is the perpendicular line that hits both of them at 90 degrees. So what perpendicular means, between the bases. So this will be the 25 meters here. So it's going to be half, and then we're going to add 1 and 5, times that by 25. The length is how 3D it is, so it would be that 10 there. So we're going to times that by 10, and that will give us 750. So it's 750 meters cubed. Now, there is a little formula we can make for the rate. So the rate of anything for this will be the volume gained over time. Now, with this question though, we're interested in the time it will take. It says how long will it take. So we're actually looking at the time. So it will be time equals the volume, which is 750, over the rate, which is 15. So 750 divided by 15 is 50. So it will take 50, and let's have a look. It says per minute, so it would be 50 minutes. There are two shapes we need to find the volume of. There's this cylinder here and this hemisphere here. So we might as well start with this cylinder. And the formula for the volume is pi times r squared times height. So it's the radius is 9, so 9 squared times the height, which is 30. And when we work that out, we get 7,634.070, blah, blah, blah. Next is the hemisphere. To find the volume of the hemisphere, well, the volume of a sphere is 4/3 times pi times r cubed. But because it's a hemisphere, we just times that by a half. So it's half times 4/3 times pi times r, which is the radius, which is 9 cubed. And that gives us 1526.814 blah blah blah. And so the total volume is 7634.070 blah 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 plus the 1526.814 blah blah blah, which equals 9160.884 blah blah blah. It says it wants it to 2 decimal places, so when we round that we get 9160.88. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our onmaths site. Onmaths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing.